It's time for the SP and Bushy Show. Here's your hosts, SP and Bushy.
Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the SP and Bushy Show. Bushy, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. We obviously people heard from the beginning. We actually have a new intro, so I got to give credit to Zach DeMose for creating this intro for us, man, and it's really exciting.
I know we're moving up in the world. We have our own intro. Shoot, maybe soon we'll even have like our own actual graphics person. I mean, I can do it, but I also have a day job. But one of these days we'll get some fancy graphics and stuff going too.
Any fans of our show that want the graphics, please give us to us. We'll take it.
Absolutely, yeah. Take the load off my plate. If you have the extra time to create them, go for it. In any event, Bushy, huge week in sports to talk about. Huge week coming up. Let's start as always as we do with college football. What are you looking at this weekend, and then what jumped out at you last week?
Well, with Clemson, we saw yesterday that Trevor Lawrence has, gone through the COVID protocols. Apparently, he's fine, so that's a good sign. But I'm not thinking about this week, but as far as next week, with that matchup between probably could be the game of the year with Clemson against Notre Dame for an ACC royalty, actually. So I hope he comes back for that game, which would be a great game.
I need to see someone prove that they can hang with Clemson for me to trust that anyone's going to be able to hang with Clemson. And obviously, Lawrence gets the attention, gets the clicks, the cameras and all that stuff, gets the focus. But at the end of the day, man, right now Clemson has that deep wanted defense as well. They're well coached with Dabo Swinney. Like I said, I need someone to prove that they can hang with them for me to get excited about a Clemson game. Because like I said, I watched that 73-7 blowout they gave at Georgia Tech a few weeks ago. So I need proof someone can stop them.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if COVID's going to probably be the culprit of trying to stop this Clemson team as well. And to go back with probably another better team as well is Alabama. They just lost one of their explosive wide receivers in Jalen Waddle, and we'll see how explosive that offense will be as well. But they didn't look. They looked like they were just humming through the same gears as well against Tennessee.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, once again, Alabama, they look like the cream of the crop in the SEC. Like we've said, they've been able to roll through their toughest games with Georgia. Ole Miss gave them a fight, but wasn't able to take them down. So once again, I need someone to prove that they can stop them. And who knows, maybe down the line, Auburn team might surprise them. You never know.
Yeah, they are susceptible to probably maybe a punch in the mouth here or there. That defense is a little bit suspect, even though they got players back. But the offense looks like they haven't missed a beat since with Tua.
No, definitely not. I mean, once again, that defense, like you said, though, does look susceptible. It's definitely not the Nick Saban vaunted defenses that we've seen in the past. So that's another thing that worries me as they move out of the SEC and maybe into facing a Clemson or Ohio State. I don't think that defense could be strong enough to get those stops when they need to.
Right. Maybe the offense maybe stumbles a little bit and doesn't, just keep rolling and scoring 35 to 40 points a game.
Yeah, you never know. Like I said, I think that they'll advance at least to the playoffs, and we'll see what ends up happening out of that.
Exactly, and this could be a little bit interesting this year since the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are ending right around Christmas time. So it could maybe help Alabama, the fact that they probably have all that rest and not play for a while, or it could hurt them, the fact that the Big Ten and the Pac-12, if one of them gets into the playoffs and they're hot at the right time and they look good and they kept playing rather than having a 2 to 3 week rest.
Absolutely. I know there's a lot of discussions about that. Obviously, we saw it in 2007 with the Rockies where too much rest hurt them. You never know how much rest can or help or won't help you. And that's one of those things that's an unproven formula, but something that, always seems to come into play.
Absolutely, and we're going to see as well with the Big 12 if Oklahoma State is for real. They play I guess they're the SP and Bushy Show's college team this year in the University of Texas. So we seem to be talking about them every week. So we'll see with Oklahoma State if they have the right to be the Big 12 representative and maybe showing off that they can be in the playoff and stay with these teams that we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma State definitely showed their strength last week against Iowa State. And one thing we've learned from Texas all year, as you've said, we've talked about them a lot. They keep putting together these fun to watch games. So that one tomorrow is going to be a fun one to see.
Absolutely. I watched a ton of that Texas Baylor game, and it seemed like a blowout, but somehow Baylor kept creeping back in like late in the fourth quarter. And it's just like, oh my God, I got to stay and watch this again.
Always do. Now let's move on. NFL, obviously big slate of games this week. I want to talk about last week, man. That early slate of games may be the best slate of games in a morning that I've ever seen. You had so many games coming down to the wire. You had Pittsburgh versus Tennessee. That was a fantastic game where it looked like Tennessee might be able to come back and take it. You had a fantastic game between the Bengals and the Browns where they traded the lead, I believe, 5 or 6 times there in the fourth quarter. And I mean, man, I tell you, that red zone subscription paid for itself on Sunday.
Absolutely. From really a really down week last week, we've got a lot of good games last week in that early window of games. And it was just a lot of fun to be a part of and just an incredible experience. And it was just like, wow. And to go on with another game you forgot to mention, the Falcons-Lions game, like that game felt like nobody wanted to win that game. Like it really did. It was just like, it felt like the no hand up game, and like the 90 sitcoms where everybody was like, no, you hand up, no, you hand up, no, you hand up. That's what it felt like with that game. It just felt like no team wanted the lead and they wanted to give the team the lead back.
Exactly. Todd Gurley scoring the first ever game-losing touchdown, maybe in NFL history. Or as if he even realized it, if he stays out of the end zone, you don't give the Lions the ball back with a chance to win it. And I mean, they obviously do. And Atlanta blows yet another lead. It's just a rough season right now for the Falcons as they cannot hang on to a lead to save their life.
Yeah, and actually to go back to college as well, we had it a day earlier with Penn State, Indiana. Penn State scoring basically the game-losing touchdown as well. And it's just, man, it's just crazy that it happened in back-to-back days that we had guys literally doing these game-losing touchdowns.
Of course, you could also play defense and stop the other team from scoring. There's that as an option too.
Yes, there was an option, and it was weird too. Like there was like reviews and all that along with the Atlanta Lions game, and it was crazy. Like I was hooked on that game as well.
Oh yeah, that game was absolutely bonkers. I know my fiance was a little bit disappointed that we're in a pick'em league, and I mean she had the Falcons and they couldn't close it out, but she's still winning it, so I don't feel too bad for her. But
man, I'm part of a loser pool, and some people actually did pick the Lions, I believe, to lose. So it was one of those hair pulling type of losses.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. It's one of those ones where like you gave him the ball back and you just knew like, okay, they shouldn't have given him the ball back because that defense wasn't going to stand up to it. Another game, obviously this was later in the day, but that Seattle-Arizona game was fantastic as well.
Yeah, it was a great game between two very matched teams. And just we saw Arizona. They may sneak in and maybe get a playoff spot in that NFC playoff race, and we'll see with that. And they look explosive, and their defense is they make plays at the right time.
Exactly. They were able to stop Russell Wilson, and then when it counted, they had a holding call, which was obviously the right call against Seattle that took away the game-winning touchdown there in overtime too. I mean, it was just a crazy game from beginning to end. I mean, two really good teams. And as bad as the NFC East is this year, that feels like the NFC West is as good as the NFC East is bad this year.
Exactly. It's the opposite of the NFC East, and just four great teams that are really going to battle it out for probably position and probably who gets maybe a home playoff game in the first round.
Yeah, I first see one of those teams getting a home playoff game. Probably the two wild cards as it stands right now, maybe coming out of there. Obviously, the NFC South has something to say about that with both Tampa Bay and New Orleans looking good. But it looks like that division could definitely bat it all out for maybe three playoff spots.
Yeah, and that's just great, especially with this new playoff format. Adding an additional team will get hopefully the first time in history, all four teams from the same division making the playoffs. So it had happened before because it couldn't happen, and now we could see it happen in its first year in existence with this new playoff format.
I kind of wish we could go back to the days of old in some respects, where before the Houston Texans came into the league and the Arizona Cardinals were in the NFC East for no reason. But at least then the NFC East would have one good team in it if the Cardinals were still in that division.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That old playoff format with the three divisions and then the top wild card. Obviously, it helped the Broncos in '97 when they had that home playoff game against Jacksonville. So it did help, and it probably rewarded teams for having a good season back
Yeah.
in the day. And I kind of wish that happened. Maybe if they expanded even more, maybe that would be the gift.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. But I mean, obviously, great week of games last week on the NFL slate. Obviously, some great ones this week as well. What are you looking forward to most?
What I'm looking forward to most is probably the battle of who's it's going to be off the radar here. A little battle of like who's good and who's not. Maybe this loserly town match between Las Vegas and Cleveland. Obviously, Vegas has a strong offense, but they ran into the buzzsaw that was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week. And then we have Cleveland coming from like this miraculous back and forth game against Cincinnati and stuff. It's just two really, I guess, half decent teams battling out, and it could help, with the playoff picture going forward.
Yeah, that's going to be a fantastic game. I'm excited about that one. Like you said, that Cincinnati Cleveland game last week was so much fun, and it definitely makes me excited to watch the Browns again. It makes me excited to watch what the Bengals have with Joe Burrow. They obviously have an interesting matchup this week against Tennessee, and I think that one's going to be interesting. I mean, you also obviously have the battle that is going to be so huge in the NFC or AFC North rather, between the Steelers and the Ravens, and that one's in Baltimore. That one's going to be a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, it's going to be probably just a knockdown, drag-out fight, and it could be those Steeler Raven games of old, of 10 years ago, where it just felt like it was a black and blue game, and you even got sore just watching the game.
Oh yeah, two great defenses battling it out. I think we're going to see that with two great offenses as well. That's going to be a fun game as well. I can't wait to see New Orleans at Chicago. Could be an interesting game as well this weekend.
Yeah, again, a good game could be jockeying for position with maybe the AFC wildcard front as well, and not to mention too, we have San Francisco, Seattle going as well, and that could be a fun game. And we could see if Seattle, after the bye week, maybe some bye week stuff, and maybe come back to earth a little bit from that 5-0 start, but and see San Francisco maybe riding the ship from that disastrous 2-game losing streak that they had.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take that losing streak with a grain of salt. Jimmy Garoppolo out. They had a lot of injuries. A lot of those guys are back now, and it looks like the Niners could be able to compete in that division as well.
Absolutely, and we could also maybe see if this the really true end of the Patriots dynasty this week when they go up to Buffalo, and it just seemed like New England always had Buffalo's number back in the day, and Buffalo goes and beats New England. We could really see the end of this so-called Patriots dynasty that's happened for 20 years now.
I would love to see that. I'd love to see the Bills get that victory. I know a couple of Bills fans, and I know they've been aching for this moment. And I mean, the Bills look like the team that could finally do that this year. And I mean, the Patriots do look a little wobbly. Edelman's out again this week. I think that there's an opportunity there for the Bills if they can make it happen to get it done and maybe prove that finally someone has supplanted New England in the AFC East.
Do you think Cam Newton's hurt, or did he have kind of complications from COVID or something like that? It's just something off. There's just something that seems off with him.
I think he's been off ever since Super Bowl 50, but that's just me. I think
I
he still has nightmares about Von Miller.
exactly, but I feel like you get good with the bad with Cam sometimes, and
Yeah.
the first part of the season that's good Cam, and now they're seeing bad Cam, and bad Cam can be really bad.
Right, absolutely. And I think, like you said, there's good Cam and there's bad Cam. And I mean, I think bad Cam usually beats good Cam a lot of the time, especially in the years of late. So I think I need to see more out of him to see that he can sustain it for a 16-game season like he did when he led them to the Super Bowl that year. And I haven't seen it lately. It seems like the league has kind of figured him out. With Edelman out, they have a lot of their weapons out as well. So I think they're going to have a tough time in this one.
Yeah, and they probably one of the most underrated free agent losses was not Tom Brady, but Dante Scarnecchia retiring. I think that is probably going to be one of the most underrated free agent losses that the Patriots lost, losing probably one of the top lineman coaches of all time. And you saw how he did when he came back in 16, 17, 18, and 19, how that offensive line was really good. And now he's gone again, and you're seeing the offensive line just looks very so and very suspect sometimes, and Cam gets hit a lot.
Certainly does. We saw it in that Broncos game. We saw that they're having a tough time protecting him. And I think Cam's not one of those quarterbacks. He needs protection. I mean, all of them do, but he does a lot better, especially if he's trying to go down the field, if he's got that extra time.
Absolutely. And it's just crazy. Like, it's just, we're seeing now, the cracks in that Belichick armor and all that. And probably fans are seeing too that, like, Josh McDaniels as well can't really do anything without Tommy out there as well. And maybe that's gonna hurt his coaching stock even more.
Yeah, that's gonna be a good question. I can't wait to see what the result of that is. I mean, you talk about Brady there. Here's a question that I'm going to propose to you. You got Brady and the Buccaneers at the Giants on Monday night. You have Mahomes and the Chiefs hosting the Jets this week. Which game is the bigger blowout?
Which game's going to be the bigger blowout? I think the Jets are going to be probably the bigger blowout. I think KC kind of plays like they're probably like an 80% game. Probably what they played against the Chargers in week 2, where they really don't show a lot. And they come out, but the Jets are the Jets, and they'll find a way to just like destroy them and all that. The Giants always seem to be in some of these games as well. I feel like they're like the Broncos of the NFC, just seem to be in like all these games and stuff. When you look at the talent, and you're like, how is this team staying in these games?
I think that the Buccaneers are going to put the hurt on them this week. I think that we've seen anything over the years is that Brady's teams are merciless. They go up as much as they can. We saw them just go from a close game with the Raiders to blowing them out in a short span on Sunday. I think that they do that again this week.
It could happen. I mean, both teams really stinking. Man, New York football is bad. Like, if it's two bad teams, and wow, it's insane.
It's really bad, and I mean, I think that takes me to our meme of the week. Last week with Daniel Jones and that fall that he had as he was racing to the end zone. That one to me, I mean, obviously there were a ton of memes made about it, but I think my favorite one, obviously you're a WWE guy as well. My favorite one, they incorporated a lot of WWE memes, but I think my favorite one was Booker T scissor kicking him down, because I feel like that one most matched the motion of that fall.
Really, I saw the RKO. I think if you put it differently, I love the RKO one. I enjoyed the Booker T one as well. They were just funny memes, and it's crazy. I saw the play as it happened. I'm going, oh no, he just tripped and fell, because there really wasn't anybody guarding him. He was going to go and score, and it was just like, oh no.
Yeah,
he just tripped and fall.
Yeah, it's terrible, and I mean it sums up the Giants season in a nutshell. But I mean, once again, both great memes. It was hilarious to see the memes that came out of that. Obviously, as a wrestling fan, just all the finishers that were hit on him after that. In the meme world, it was hilarious to see.
Oh, it is a shame. I also liked yeah, I forgot what the wrestler was. There was another wrestling one. I think it was maybe like a Stone Cold Stunner as well. So I think I saw that as well, which made me laugh as well.
Oh yeah, such good times. Unfortunately, at his expense. I mean, obviously we've seen that in the past with the Broncos as well. Them having that moment where I think Eric Decker was racing to the end zone in a game against the Chargers and fell in a phantom hole out there as well.
Yeah, yeah. Thankfully, the memes weren't as prevalent as they are back then. But yeah,
For sure, man. Now I think we obviously gotta. I think we obviously gotta move on to the World Series. That was an exciting World Series, and I think we just gotta just chat about some of this excitement that happened in that 6-game series.
it was crazy. Like game two hadn't happened yet when we had it, and now we have a completion of a World Series now, and it was definitely a crazier World Series uh, of the time. And man, it was fun.
It was a blast. I mean, you have this huge budget team with the Dodgers. You have the little engine that could with the Rays, and it was a fun World Series to see. You have that insane ending to Game 4 with the Dodgers on the verge of potentially going up 3-1, and then a guy who's had 2 postseason at bats there, and Andy Phillips comes up, hits the single that ties the game, and then the Dodgers flip the ball. The center fielder, I believe it's Bellinger, flips the ball into right field instead of like trying to throw home. By the time he chases it down and throws home, the catcher misses the tag. The Rays score the winning run and walk it off. And what was just an insanely exciting World Series game.
It was insane. I thought, oh my God, this is the Dodgers' downfall. I think maybe in like a normal year, that probably could have been the Dodgers' downfall, with the fact that it was Game 5, probably the next night, and it probably this Tampa Bay crowd going nuts and insane, maybe trying to get up 3-2 and stuff, and seeing the Dodgers fans go, here we go again, that type of victory. But I think 2020 kind of helped a lot, not having a big crowd and stuff, and basically playing a small package of crowds and playing in Texas. It would have been different, I think, if it was a normal year rather than this year.
That's a very good point. It would have been interesting to see if the crowd would have came back and had an impact in that Game 5. And I mean, once again, the Rays were in these games. They had the opportunity, and it felt like they couldn't get those clutch hits and be able to put that extra run up that they needed to get that insurance. And that kind of brings me to my bonehead move of the week. As much as I liked what Kevin Cash did with that team all season, the decision to steal home to me is the bonehead of the week there. I mean, stealing home, I don't remember very many times I've ever seen that work. And you have a guy that's obviously a good hard thrower in Kershaw, and you try to steal home on him. I think at that point you're taking the bat out of your batter's hands, and you're just letting your fear of the Dodgers pitching kind of take over.
Exactly, and I agree with you with that statement. It felt like the Rays got a ton of people on base, and it just felt like they just couldn't bring anybody home here for a while. And it's just, my God, it was so bad. And I'll give you another Kevin Cash bonehead player of the week. Um, taking out Blake Snell during Game 6. I was working at the time, but I was reading Twitter. It looked like he was wheeling and dealing, and he was pitching really well. And Kevin Cash decided to take him out because it was 75 pitches in, and and we saw that it come back to really bite the Rays in the butt. Just with the Dodgers scoring 2 runs at that inning, and just like, oh man, just another bite in the butt, and another maybe of these analytics over managing.
I feel like we're seeing that a lot more nowadays. The analytics over managing the games. And I think that, I mean, nowadays you see where teams will start one guy, have him go an inning and 2/3, when I think that you're overlooking the fact that if you still have a dominant starter and the other team's having a hard time figuring him out, don't race to that bullpen yet. I mean, especially because that starter is designed to be a starter for a reason. He's designed to let you get deep in the game. Let him do it for you.
I know, and it just sometimes these computers just don't have a feel for the game, or it's like a game sense type of type of thing, and it really is just but hair pulling sometimes. Like it's just like, really, you're gonna take a guy out for like 75 pitches? It's just like the first sign of trouble, you got to yank him. Like sometimes that helps a pitcher, and sometimes that blows the other team's confidence if they get runners on, but they get out of the inning with very minimal casualty. That is a uplifting thing for your team and a deflating thing for the other team.
Yeah, and especially Snell, he's a guy who's a former Cy Young winner. Who on your team are you going to feel more comfortable having the ball in that situation than him? Even if, I mean, he's, like you said, he had a shutout going to that point. At least make them score the tying run off of him before you pull him. And contrastly, that move did work going for the Dodgers, going to the bullpen right away. But the guy that they had on the mound wasn't a true starter. In fact, they were able to patch it together with that bullpen. But again, the
Yeah,
guy they had on the
and it
mound to
was
start the game wasn't a true starter.
and it was game 6. It was a do or die game for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to pull out all the punches for a do or die game just so he could play the next day. It was very, very, very questioning of that over managing.
I think so too. I think you got to trust Blake Snell in that situation. He's one of your better players. It'd be like, once again, why are you trying to pull your best hitter when you don't need to either, just because this guy may have a better analytical matchup. You don't do that, so why would you pull one of your best pitchers for one matchup when in reality he could have gone maybe another inning, maybe another 2 innings, and maybe gotten you into the 8th with a 1-run lead.
Yeah, it's just one of these things where I think we're seeing the shift now to the analytics and all that, and I think now we'll see maybe a shift more and be like, oh, maybe this guy has some game sense, and keep this guy on.
Yeah, I think you got to ride the hot hand in that situation. And another thing that he did, I thought was a little bit boneheadish with Phillips, like we said, coming up with that huge at bat in game 4. He never let that guy hit again. And instead, for the last at bat of that game, they're down 2. He let Willie Adames hit, who had like the least competitive at bat I've ever seen as the final out in that game. He goes down on 3 pitches, looking at all 3 of them. I think he was hitting 176 in the series. At that point, pull that guy, get him out of there. He should have been out of there 2 at bats ago. Get him out of there. Get someone else a chance. And you saw it with Phillips, so the momentum that he had, let him have a chance to capitalize on it. He should have started the next game.
It's just crazy too. Yeah, it really felt like a really uncompetitive strikeout as well. Like when they struck him out, like it was just one of those, like he just walked back to the mound like there was going to be like another 2 innings to play and something like that. Instead, it's like, what? That was it. That was the last out of the 2020 MLB season, and it looked very, very undramatic to him. And he walked back to the dugout, looked like, okay, I struck out.
He looked like he had quit 2 innings ago. Like he looked like he had given up long before that at bat. And then just to see just the least competitive at bat ever. No, the bat stays on his shoulders for 3 pitches in the zone. Like, take a cut at something. I'm okay if you go down swinging. But if you go down looking on 3 straight pitches at the final out for your team, that's garbage. That's garbage.
And he just walked back to the dugout again. He just walked
Right.
back to the dugout like it was just another ho hum strikeout. Like there's still another eight, 9 outs to go for our team.
Yeah, slam a bat. Show me some emotion. Show me something that shows you want to be at bat in that situation. Because if he'd have shown me something, I would have been arguing right now that he should have been pulled 2 innings earlier. But you could tell that there's big game players and there's there's players that aren't big game players. And you could tell with the way he played in that whole World Series, the way he hit the whole World Series, and the way that he phoned in that last at bat with your season on the line, that's not a big game player. Willie Adames is not a big game player.
Which is strange because he actually had a really good ALCS as well. He was making very good defensive plays against Houston and all that. It was very, very strange to see that happen.
And that's probably why they didn't sub him, is because of his defense. But at the end of the day, I'm sorry, but if you're going to put together those non-competitive at-bats like that, I remember when I was first getting into baseball, they were showing me on ESPN or Baseball Tonight all these web gems that Ray Ordonez of the New York Mets had. Ray Ordonez was still hitting 210 all season long. So at the end of the day, yeah, the defense is good, but you need to have someone who's going to be able to swing a bat in that situation.
Yeah, and especially since you're down to your final out of your season as well. So might as well go down with a, you know, in a blaze of glory.
I mean, it bugged me. Obviously, I was rooting for the Rays in the situation as the underdog, as someone who's I'm a Rockies fan, so seeing them have the Dodgers celebrate that World Series. I mean, again, with the huge payroll, you're obviously rooting for the underdog for most people in that situation. That being said, to see someone just phone in that at bat just really bothered me.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind so much of the taking the third strike, but again, what really bugged me going back to it was him just walking back to the dugout like it's just like, oh, okay, he struck me out. Okay, we still got some outs.
Yeah, it was awful.
It felt like just like a normal strikeout to him, and it's just like that was a strikeout to end the World Series. Like, and he treated it like it was just like a normal strikeout.
Yeah, honestly, they could have ran you or me up there and had literally the same result. Any one of us could have stood up there, watched 3 pitches go by, and walked back and sat down. And instead,
I would have fouled bunt. That's what I would have done.
I would have at
I
least
would have
tried to
fouled.
do something. I'd
Probably
have
would
at
have.
least charged the mound for fun at that point. Do something.
I probably would have been an interesting trivia question. Who is the only person who fouled out to win the World Series? You know, I'd probably be an interesting trivia question.
Yeah, exactly. At least try something. They probably weren't expecting him to do that. So even if he'd have done that, that would have been better. Honestly, you could have ran in one of those cardboard cutouts in the stands up there, and they'd have done the same. They'd had the same at bat. It was like he was a cardboard cutout that whole at bat. You could see the defeat on his face, and that's why I said I think we both agree that Kevin Cash is the bonehead of the week.
Should we take it maybe a cardboard and maybe try to swing the
Yeah,
cardboard as a bat or something like that? Try that.
anything,
Maybe slip out of our hands as well.
anything.
I would have been fine too if it slipped out of his hands too. We would have been
Yeah.
fine with that.
Yeah. It's the last bout of the World Series. Give me something to watch. That being said, congratulations to the Dodgers on their World Series victory. I mean, 32 years, it's felt like it, with as good as they've been, it's felt like they've had a World Series in the last 32 years, but they really haven't. So the fact that they won their first World Series in 32 years, congratulations to them.
Yeah, good job for them. Yeah, and it's just crazy to think about it that, because last time they won a World Series, you were just a young pup and I was in my mother's womb. I mean, it's just crazy to think about that. Like, we never really have experienced like a Dodgers World Series before, and this is the first time. I was watching I think like the ninth inning at the bar, and I got out like right as the last out happened, and that's what I think that's what bugged me was Willie Adames just walking back. That's what just bugged me the most. I was just like, really?
Exactly.
I think that's what just bugged me.
Yeah,
I think on top of that, and hearing Dodger fans in the bar cheering for a World Series, I think that just bugged me.
Yeah, thankfully we were watching that at home, so I didn't have to deal with any Dodger fans celebrating it. But basically, Willie Adames walked like he was walking out of the bar. He might as well have just walked out of the bar at that point. He looked like he was punch drunk at that point anyway. And he just, like I said, nails that in, and the Dodgers do get to celebrate the World Series. And like I said, if it had been a competitive at bat, we aren't talking about this. So at the end of the day, I think that he needed to at least show his teammates that, okay, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to at least put up a fight.
He reminds me of that SpongeBob meme, you know, that, all right, I'm going to head out. That's what it felt like. All right, I'm going to head out.
Exactly. Just, yeah, rough one. But again, I mean, the Dodgers have had this talent. They've had consecutive division titles for seemingly the last decade almost. And for them to finally get their World Series, like, it's weird because it felt like it hasn't been 32 years. It felt like they had to have won one somewhere in this span, and they just haven't been able to finally close it out. They finally do last week as they do win that World Series.
Yeah, and you know, they did well, and like, give them credit. They really bounced back and won Game 5 and Game 6 after that disastrous Game 4, which really in previous Dodger years, that would have been the death knell. You would have said, "Oh no, there it is. There's the death knell," and the Rays go on and win in 6. rather than the Dodgers winning in 6.
Exactly. And even the series before that against the Braves, they go down 3-1. People start questioning them again, question whether or not Kershaw is a playoff performer, question the team again to see if they can do it. The fact that they showed that resiliency, they were able to battle back from 3-1 against the Braves as well and still win that series, what it really does said a lot about the resiliency of this team.
Yeah, it was actually a really good World Series. I was very impressed with all the games and stuff. It was a very very competitive World Series. Even yeah, it was just great. It was a very good and competitive World Series.
It was a really competitive World Series, especially for 26 of the Rays' 27 outs in the last game there. They were really competitive. The last out, not so much competitive, but again, a very competitive, fun World Series to watch. And hopefully next year we actually get fans back. We are able to enjoy this World baseball moving forward. And hopefully the Rays can capitalize on the success of this team and finally start getting some good home crowds.
Yes, absolutely. But who knows with that stadium? I've heard it's that in Oakland is one of the worst stadiums of the MLB and it's just you never know. Maybe this is their help to maybe getting a new stadium.
We can only hope. I mean, like I said, it's fun to see a team that's so underfunded be so competitive. And even you talk about Oakland, Oakland kind of defined that model with Billy Bean and Moneyball. And I mean, they've still been able to put together a great team despite having a less than good stadium, despite having the smaller crowds, and despite being that smaller market team as well. And again, it shows that, again, superior managing and superior managing and superior momentum can sometimes beat out superior talent. And that's what we've seen. And then in this case, I think we talked about it, the over managing kind of got in the way in the World Series.
Hey, you took the words right out of my mouth, Sean. I was going to say that, but you took the words right out of my mouth.
Great minds think alike, right?
Absolutely. I guess that's what happens when you have 25 years of friendship, you know?
Exactly.
You just kind of sink into that same wave.
For sure, man. Now, obviously, this week, I mean, I got the Avs gear on. I'm ready to roll. You got the Avs gear behind you. Let's talk about it. We got our top 10. I mean, assuming there wasn't anything else you wanted to touch on, right?
No, I'm ready. Let's go with our hockey time machine.
Hockey time machine it is. Let's go back in time and pretend that we could go to every game of all time. What's the first, or I guess what's the 10th game you're going to go to?
10th game I'm going to go to. I'm going to go a little NHL versus USSR game. I'm going to go to 1976 when the Philadelphia Flyers took on the Soviet national team. This was one of the rare games actually where the Soviets actually got dominated. I believe they lost 4-1 in the game, and they got outshot by at least like 30 shots on goal. I think the shot total was like 46 to like 17. It was insane, like a dominant performance by that 70s Flyers team. And I just wanted to see that 70s Flyers team in action, you know, where they just beat the crap out of you, both physically and mentally. And what was unique about this game as well is about like probably like 10 minutes in the first period, the Russians got very fed up with the Flyers style of play that they walked out. They walked out of the game, and they said, no, we don't want to do this. This is terrible. Forget about this. And it was crazy. And I heard the story that the owner of the Flyers, Ed Snyder, ran down and through an interpreter with like the Russians, basically told them like, if you don't play, you're not going to get paid. And so the Russians had like a deliberation for like, I think for like another 5 to 10 minutes, and they walked back out on the ice, and literally they were just there to see, you know, the Flyers just kick the crap out of them.
Wow, that's incredible. And I mean, that would be a fun one to have been at, man. That would have been crazy to be at that game.
Actually, yeah, and to see be part of the Philly crowd of that time at the old Spectrum, and seeing that team well, and just seeing the Russians really dominated, because we always talk about how great that team was, and that was really one of the rare occurrences where they actually got dominated on the ice.
Yeah, that was, I mean, any victory over the Russians in that era was something to take a picture and celebrate. But I mean, to do it that badly that they almost, like, the people were leaving the stadium, that's impressive.
Yeah, it would have been great, and it would have been just a fun game to be at.
It certainly would have. I mean, obviously, that would have been a really cool one to be at. My first one that I would go to, and it's the a first round playoff game in 1992, and it's gonna be the Canadian Montreal Canadiens hosting the Hartford Whalers. It's a game 7 in 1992, and the Canadiens are able to pull out a 3-2 victory in double overtime. I mean, obviously, the Canadiens are one of those teams that's had a long, great history. I mean, you could go back and say you'd want to see games where Rocket Richard played and see some of those other people. But for me, obviously, I mean, growing up in the 90s, you have more of a connection to some of these younger players or these players from the 90s. And to see Patrick Waugh stand on his head, get the game or get the clinching victory for the Canadiens, and then to be a part of that celebration with the Canadiens fans who obviously know how to celebrate in a big way with as many titles as they've won. Would have been really cool to have been a part of that one. And it's just an exciting game 7 against the Hartford Whalers. And so it would have been cool nowadays to go back and say, oh, yeah, I saw the Hartford Whalers play since they don't exist anymore. But yet every hockey game you go to, someone still has a Hartford Whalers jersey on.
Not so much here, but I do see people with the Hartford Whalers hat. They don't have the jersey; they definitely have the hat. So I will give you that. I do see some sort of Hartford Whalers memorabilia whenever I work at a hockey place. And yeah, it would have been just great just seeing two franchises really going kind of opposite directions. I guess the Hartford Whalers are really starting to see their decline before their move to Carolina, and this is really kind of the year. And you see the Montreal Canadiens the year before they actually win the Cup. So it would have been a great game to be a part of, and being at the old Montreal Forum as well. It would have been just a great atmosphere to be at.
It certainly would have. And I mean, you go back and you, like you said, you talk about, I mean, I feel like every game I'm at, there's a Hartford Whalers jersey. Yeah, but I think you're at a lot more games than I am. So yeah, but it just feels like the Hartford Whalers are one of those teams that has like a weirdly lingering legacy. And I mean, you get some great players in this game as well that you could have been around to see. You get Pratt Verbeek for the Whalers, and you get some of these like just big names as well for the Canadiens. Like I said, Patrick Waugh, Eric Desjardins, and some of these other guys like Matthew Schneider was on that team as well. So some of these guys, and then obviously Dennis Savard is another guy like you hear stories about him playing, but guy that I never got to see in person anyway.
Right, yeah, and then I believe John LeClair was on that Canadians team as well. So seeing a very young John LeClair at the time, that would have been fun and interesting.
Sure would have, and obviously that would have been a great game to be a part of as well. What do you got next?
I'm going a year ahead of you. I'm going to go 1993. I'm going to go LA Kings versus Toronto, Game 7 of the. It was called I believe the Campbell Finals, but as it's now known, the Western Conference Finals. It probably was really Wayne Gretzky's last great game. He scored a hat trick in this game and really dominated play, and it was you'll see some really good players at that time. You have Luc Robitaille, Marty McSorley, Rob Blake was on that team as well. Obviously Wayne Gretzky, and then on the Toronto side you have Doug Gilmour. I believe Dave Andrechuk was on that team. Wendell Clark was on that team, and he had a really young Felix the Cat Potvin, who what a very underrated nickname. Would not have been on our top 10 nicknames list, but he probably would have been an honorable mention. Just a great thing with that. And then you have coaches, you had like Pat Burns, very decent coach at the time, and then obviously you have Barry Melrose as the coach for the Kings.
Yeah, that would have been definitely a very exciting game to have been a part of. Anytime you get to see Wayne Gretzky in that situation would have been exciting. And I feel like that was kind of like the last hurrah almost of the Maple Leafs, just because they've been a franchise that, yeah, they may have made the playoffs here or there, but they haven't threatened the Stanley Cup Finals or they haven't threatened a Western Conference Finals in what feels like forever. So to see them actually being a relevant team would have been exciting, just because obviously you hear the stories. Obviously hockey Canada is such a huge thing, and that's going to come up later. But to see the Maple Leafs actually being able to field a team that almost gets them to the Stanley Cup Finals would have been really cool to be a part of as well.
Yeah, and going to the old Maple Leaf Gardens at that time, a very historic arena at the time, and it looked like a very great atmosphere to be a part of. Just seeing like the highlights of that game and watching that game, it looked like a fun atmosphere, especially if any Maple Leafs scored at that time. It looked like the camera was shaking every time when you saw a Maple Leafs goal. It looked like a fun game to be a part of, and just to see Gretzky basically kind of his last hurrah, and just see him dominating that game 7 and uh, basically willing the LA Kings to the cup.
Nice, that's a good one.
All
My
right,
next
what is
one,
next?
what's that?
What's next for you?
My next one is going to be the 1980 gold medal clinching game for the United States. Obviously, you hear all this stuff about the Miracle on Ice, but Miracle on Ice wasn't the last game that they played. The U.S. still had to clinch the victory against Finland in the finals a few days later. So to see the U.S. beat Finland, to see them clinch the gold medal here on American soil, to see them get the gold medals in the medal ceremony, that whole experience would have been really cool. And I think that that's obviously kind of a forgotten game because everyone talks about the game earlier with the Miracle on Ice. But to be able to see that game and to see the U.S. clinch that hockey gold medal would have been really cool.
I feel like we could combine both of the games as well. Obviously, with I have the Miracle on Ice as one of my games I would love to have gone to. Just to see the Russian team at the time as well, and then yeah, just seeing the gold medal game as well. Just all this full of American patriotism, everybody shouting USA, 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 and just like this brand, just 20 college kids going and basically winning the gold medal is just crazy.
It is. It's an exciting thing to see. Obviously, they do it here on home soil, which is something that would have obviously been cool to be a part of, especially at like a smaller venue like Lake Placid. I mean, that would have been kind of a neat thing to be a part of. And just like I said, it'd be really cool to have seen that game live. I had the gold medal game, and then obviously I have the Miracle on Ice much higher up on this list just because of this history and the meaning of that game and that Ruzioni goal to put him up. That whole thing would have just been incredible. And looking back on it, to be a part of that game would obviously been cooler than being a part of the gold medal game. But like you said, I think you can lump them all together and really just have a great 1980 Olympic experience. If you could go back in time and be at an Olympics, that would have been a great one to be at.
Well, yeah, it's been a dream of mine to go to the Olympics, but isn't it crazy as well? Like that game was on tape delay as well, so you wouldn't have known the result at the time unless you watched it or you listened to the radio. That the fact that you saw that the U.S. beat the Russians at that time and probably called, it would have been cool because you probably would have watched the game and then probably would have called your friends and be like, "Yeah, we beat the Russians. It was one of the greatest things." But it would have missed on the experience as well because you would have missed Al Michaels' wonderful call of "Do you believe in miracles?" So it would have been a
No,
little bit of a drawback as well. You would have been at a great moment in time, but just to miss that call
no,
as well.
you just race back to your hotel room and watch the end of the game on TV at the hotel, so you get the call
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I never thought about that.
because
Yeah,
it was
since it
tape
was on
delay
tape
with the
delay.
circuit.
Yeah, yeah. The game started at like 5 on New York time, and so it would have been 8 o'clock New York time. So you probably could have gone back and probably watched the game if you
Yeah,
really,
you
really
could have.
wanted to.
You certainly could have. So that would have been a really cool thing to be a part of. Obviously, that game is just such an insanely defining game of U.S. Olympic culture. So to be able to see that game, to see them pull off that upset would have been just so insane to be a part of.
It would have been great. It would have been just an amazing experience, and probably just hugging everybody in sight and shouting "USA, USA, USA."
Those are the best games when you're hugging complete strangers. That's when you know that's when you know you're a part of something special is when you're hugging complete strangers.
Absolutely, it would have been just a great experience to be
That's
a
one
part
of
of.
the that's one of the saddest things about the pandemic. You can't hug complete strangers when your team has a big win anymore.
I mean, you can, but it's really, really frowned upon, and especially if you're not wearing a mask.
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
That was an incredible game. What do you got next?
so obviously we talked about the Miracle on Ice, but I'm going back to the Montreal Forum. I'm going to go to 1955. It's a regular season game between the Canadiens and Red Wings. I believe it happened on St. Patrick's Day,
Hmm.
if my research is right. So what happened was, so the backstory is the game before against the Boston Bruins, Maurice Richard was getting like hammered by a bunch of Boston goons and all that, and so he had enough and started a fight, and in that, and apparently it was like a big scrum afterwards, and then after that fight, during like the entire scrum and all that, he punches a ref at the time. So yeah, so it finds out that that Clarence Campbell, the basically the commissioner at the time, basically suspended Maurice Richard for the rest of the season.
Wow.
And yeah, and so this game, he had what I've learned from doing research. He was in attendance of this game, and the fans did not enjoy it, did not like it, and apparently it sparked a riot. And obviously, the Canadians ended up losing that game to the Red Wings, but it caused a riot, and it was crazy. And it was just like, wow, like apparently, like Clarence Campbell didn't show up as game time happened. He showed up like I believe in the middle of the first period, and just fans were just booing him, and apparently, and it caused a riot in Montreal at that night.
Wow. I mean, that obviously would have been an incredible thing to be a part of. I don't think I'm ever, if I have a time machine, I don't think I'm ever going to use it to go back and see a game where the Red Wings win. I don't think I can do that.
It was just a crazy ride as well, and just to see the ride that spoke that apparently Maurice Richard went on the radio, I believe that like the next day to tell people to like, hey, stop rioting, basically like get over it, stop rioting, it's okay, I'll be back next year.
Dude, I'd like to be at the game where he punched the ref. That would have been fun to see.
It definitely would have been fun to see. It would have been nice to see like a he said she said type of thing.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen that. I mean, I think anyone who's watched any sporting event has at one point wanted to punch a referee. So
Apparently he did it by accident. That's like the legend that apparently he did it by accident. Like he thought he was one of the Boston players.
Oh, I'm sure he did. I'm sure it was like a Julie the Cat, or like, what was it? No, Dean Portman and Mighty Ducks
Yeah.
2, where he
Yeah,
actually
just,
like leans back and knocks him over, and then gets ejected from the game. But yeah, I mean, nevertheless, I think that one sounds exciting to me to have been a part of a game where he actually hits the referee, and then that battle with Boston. I think that would have been a fun one to be at. Like I said,
yeah.
I can't go back in time and see a Red Wings win. I can't do it.
Both games would have been fun, and it just would have been nice to just be part of the riot. Then maybe kind of sneak out in the back, and we kind of get back in our time machine for our safety.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. Be in the time machine, but be on standby in case a beer bottle comes flying.
Yes, because fans were a lot different back then. It would have definitely been like, okay, let's get out of here.
Exactly. That would have been like slapshot days where everything's going crazy and there's brawls in the stands. Would have been cool to be a part of for sure, though.
Absolutely. What do you have for your next?
I have my next one is Wayne Gretzky's first cup in 1984. Obviously, Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player of all time. Never got to see him play in person, and to see him in his prime lead the Edmonton Oilers to dethroning the New York Islanders that at the time were a dynasty. So to see that play out the way it did, and to be a part of Wayne Gretzky winning his first cup, what would go on to be, I mean, I think it was what, 4 or 5?
I believe four cups in 5 years.
Yeah, so I mean, to go back and see that one, I mean, it's a 5-2 game, so not the most exciting game in the world, but to see that moment and to see the changing of the guard and to see um, Wayne Gretzky kind of just taking over in that moment would have been really cool to see. You also have Mark Messier on that Oilers team, so to be able to see them and see them kind of really make that move would have been really cool to be a part of. And then a guy that I actually met when I was covering hockey in Wichita back in the day, Kevin McClelland, who was like kind of the enforcer on that team, to see him actually play as opposed to coaching would have been kind of fun too.
Wow, that would have been great. And just those teams were good too. You had Glenn Anderson and Yari Curry, and then on top of Billy Smith, I
Paul
believe Trottier.
Coffey.
Yeah, Paul Coffey, Brian Trottier. Man, like that is just like a great game to be a part of.
It would have been. It would have been really cool to be a part of that and to see Wayne Gretzky get that cup, get the changing of the guard. It would have been really cool to be a part of it.
Right, and see basically Edmonton get their revenge because they lost the previous year, and then they come back and win, I believe, 4 straight against the Islanders.
Exactly. I mean, there were a lot of fun games in that series as well. Yeah, I mean the Oilers really put on them on a lot of those games. The 2 games prior to Game 5 when they clinched it, it was 7-2 in both of them. So I mean, really, just to see the Oilers kind of let put the NHL on notice as to what it was going to be. And again, you have a really exciting uh, moment there as they kind of celebrate it in Canada. So to be able to be a part of that would have been really sweet.
Yeah, it would have been great to see a cup celebration as well, and just seeing all the players skate around with the cup. Definitely would have not have left.
No, definitely not. And to be in Edmonton when they do that, I mean, I remember, I think the Oilers fans travel really well. A couple of years ago, I was in Vegas, and it was an Oilers Golden Knights game. I didn't go to the game, but I just saw a sea of Oilers jerseys just flooding out of the T-Mobile Arena after that game, and so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, they have a great fan base, but obviously they probably a very impatient fan base because they really haven't won in over 30 years now. So it's a very telling thing.
Certainly is, and I mean, Canada in general has just had a really tough time being able to raise the cup.
Yeah, we're coming up. We're coming up to like 27 years now with this drought with Canada, and it really doesn't look like an end in sight as well. Really, Edmonton and Vancouver are probably the best bets for a Canadian Stanley Cup in this probably this next 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I never want to rule Montreal out. It seems like they always are in the mix, but yeah, I agree. I think that unless Edmonton does it, I think it's going to be a wait.
Yeah, it's probably going to be another wait as well. So again, who knows? The Stanley Cup really is a very unpredictable playoffs.
It
So
is.
we'll see next year.
Absolutely, we certainly will. What's your next game?
My next game, I'm going to stay in the Montreal Forum as well. I'm going to go to 1984 and Quebec against Montreal, and it's known as the Good Friday Massacre. It happened on Good Friday, and it was just crazy. I mean, it was basically like a brawl. It was basically the ending to Slapshot. I mean, just basically everybody was just brawling and everybody was fighting each other and stuff. And people got like cheap shotted. They got sucker punched. It was insane of a game, and it was just an all out brawl. Like I believe Peter Stastny broke his nose during one of these fights. One guy had a detached retina from it. I mean, it was just it was just insane and all that. And I mean, what the crazy part is as well is that they had a fight happen between periods 2 and 3. Like they were going to skating for like the warm up, and they had a fight, and they had another fight. They had a fight like at the end of the second period, and then they had a fight during the start of the third period, and they were just all out brawls.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we don't get a really good. I don't remember the last time we've had a good all-out brawl in hockey, and it feels like, I mean, unfortunately, the sport's kind of gone away from that in a little bit. But I mean, you go back into the '80s, early '90s. That is a huge rivalry too between the Nordiques and the Canadians. I mean, they're both battling for the province of Quebec to be the top team in that province. So again, those two teams do not like each other. So to be able to see that rivalry explode would have been insane to be a part of, especially like it was kind of like the '80s version of like Red Wings Habs. It was so cool.
It was just a crazy game. Just seeing all the fights that had happened, and then on top of it too, you get the offense in the third period. There was a total, I believe, of 6 goals happening in that third period as well. I believe 5 for Montreal, and then one for Quebec, in which the Canadians end up winning 5-2, I believe.
Yeah, that would. I mean, that would have been a fun one to be at for sure. It really, cool to be a part of any Canadiens game. I think would have been a really cool arena to be at. I think going back to the Montreal Forum days, especially, would have been really cool. And I mean, you look at it, like I said, the Canadiens, despite recent years and despite the fact that they haven't lifted the cup, are still the most successful franchise in NHL history. So to be able to see a game there, especially one with those kind of brawls, would have been awesome.
Yeah, it would have been great, and just an all-out massacre, and to maybe see a Montreal win would have been really nice, and just man, it would have been fun to be a part of.
It sure would have. My
All
next
right, what's
one is I'm going back. I mean, we talked about when the Oilers kind of started their dynasty. I want to go back to the start of that Islanders dynasty that they dethroned, and it was the 1980 Stanley Cup Finals. They win. The Islanders win Game 6 over the Flyers. They win it in overtime to clinch the cup. It would have been so cool to be at this game. I think you have some really great players again on that Islanders side of things. That would have been cool to see. You have Danny Potvin. You have some really Mike Bossy. You have some really cool players that you could have seen from those early 80s teams. And then again, to see them lift the cup after an OT game winner at the Nassau Coliseum, which is just this old barn style of hockey. And it might have been like the last one before, they moved away from there a couple of years ago. So to see that them lift their first cup would have been awesome. Or left that first cup of that dynasty.
they're back in there, by the way. I believe. I think they kind of renovated a little bit, but but it's still kind of there, I believe.
I know they moved out of it for a while.
Yeah, they moved to Brooklyn, and then they moved back in. Yeah.
If they're back in, all the better. But nevertheless, it would have been really cool to be a part of, like I said, that OT game winner in 1980. You get the Nassau Coliseum crowd going nuts. They get to see their Islanders take the lap with the cup. And again, it's kind of the end of that Broad Street Bullies era for the Flyers, who they beat in that cup final. So it would have been really cool to see kind of the start of an era, the end of an era, and then just, like I said, a really fun game that results in a cup getting skated around, something that we've never seen. So obviously it would have been really cool to see that.
Yeah, it would have been great to be a part of that game, and just all those great players and all that. Plus, you had a little controversy. I believe the Flyers some of the Flyers do believe that. I believe the game-winning goal, there was an offside play, but they never called it. So a little controversy to involve, but all in all, it just would have been a great game to be a part of.
And I mean, you look at it too. I'm looking at it right now. There were just a ton of penalties in that game as well. And again, you have the overtime game winner there by Bobby Nystrom. But to look at it, I mean, you have like multiple fighting penalties throughout this game. This game kind of had it all. It would have been fun to be there.
Oh, it would have been amazingly to be a part of, and just for the experience.
Like I said, you have the Flyers and those Broad Street Bullies too. That have been, like I said, it would have been a very physical brand of hockey to be a part of.
Absolutely, yes. It would have been a very physical game, but it would have been tense as well, since the game wasn't overtime, and it's just one of those games where any goal goes in, and you're a winner.
Exactly. What do you got next?
What I got next? Okay, I'm gonna go back here with an Avs thing. I'm gonna go with 2013, the first game of the season, Avs versus Ducks, and Patrick Waugh's debut as a head coach. Would have been just a great experience to be a part of, and just the Avs won 6-1. Would have been a great experience, and then it would have happened literally right at the end of the game as well, where Patrick Waugh really showed why he's called Patrick Waugh and stuff. He was yelling at Bushy, the Ducks coach at the time, and he was, they were just jawing at each other because he thought Boudreau's team was getting, a little chippy and doing dirty hits and all that. And he basically was just shoving the glass at Boudreau. And basically he had to change some machinery because of that. That thing is kind of sealed in now, rather than it's just a plexiglass just kind of separating these two, and he's really the cause of it. And I think that would have been just great, and probably would have been nice to maybe sit in front of the Avs bench and just kind of hear that conversation.
It sure would have, and it's one of those rare situations where you see a coach almost go after another coach. So to see that would have been a sight to see, and something you don't see every day.
Yeah, it would have been a great experience, and I would have loved to have been a part of it.
That would have been really cool for sure.
Absolutely. What's next on your list?
Up next for me, I got the 1994 Stanley Cup Finals, and I'm going Game 7 of that one again. And the New York Rangers this time are the ones that skate the cup around. Thanks to a 3-2 victory in the Stanley Cup Finals, you get to see Mark Messier in Game 7 get the win and then also skate the cup around in what has really been like the last big moment for New York hockey. And it was, I mean, like I said, a huge moment for Mark Messier to skate it one more time.
It would have been a great experience to be a part of, and just to see the Rangers fans go nuts, especially with a team that had not won in over 50 years at that point, and just to see the demons just lifted and stuff, and it would have been like with the Cubs winning that championship in 2016. I bet it would have been that same experience as well, and the fact that they won it at home on a Game 7 against a very good Vancouver team as well. So would have been just a great experience.
It sure would have, and then obviously on top of that, you get the cherry on top of being able to see a game at Madison Square Garden, obviously the world's most famous arena, something where I've never been able to catch a game. So to be able to catch such a meaningful game in that would have been in that building would have been so cool.
Yeah, it would have been great, and just a great atmosphere, and it would have been amazing too, just to see all the Rangers fans very happy, and just see all the Ranger players very excited as well because they won the cup in a Game 7 as well, which is kind of rare too for hockey.
It certainly is. And then you look at it, one goal game on top of that. You have like the moments as it winds down with the Canucks trying to rally and get that game tying goal. Very exciting game to be there for. And then, like I said, Messier skating the cup. But you have a lot of really good players on that Rangers team. Sergei Zubov was pretty young on that team. You have Brian Leetch. You have Mike Richter. You have a lot of these guys that ended up being very big names in hockey that you're able to see them play in the Stanley Cup final game.
Yeah, it would have been again, just a great experience, and just there's really nothing I can think of more. And just to see Messier's just excitement as well, him shaking the cup and all that. I think that's probably his famous. He probably will take that cup over any of the cups that he had beforehand.
Exactly, yeah. Because I mean, obviously, but the ones before it, he had Gretzky. This one, it feels like he kind of went out and got it on his own, and it's a big win and a cool one to be a part of. What do you got next?
All right, I'm going to stick with the Avs again. I'm going to go 1996 Avs versus the Florida Panthers, Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Just an amazing experience, and just the game was a triple OT game, and just man, it was both goaltenders, Patrick Waugh, John Van Beesbrook, really on the top of their games, and just making unbelievable saves on each end and stuff. And you would have had the Florida Panthers fans at that time with the Rats and all that, and just to see a Colorado team win a championship, which is pretty crazy to think about it, but that was the first major championship for the sport of for the city or for the state of Colorado ever, and it was just a great experience to be a part of, and just to see Uwe Krupp score that goal and would have been amazing.
This one to me was the toughest one to leave off of my list. I mean, I left it off just because I didn't want to go full-blown Avs as much as I could have. I mean, if we're looking at it really, if we're eliminating our Avalanche bias, really, this game, or if I'm not eliminating my Avalanche bias, I guess I should say, this game would have been right up there in my top 5. It's just such an important moment for the state of Colorado. They get their first major championship, like you said. Thankfully, now it's up to 5 total. But again, the Avalanche getting this win kind of started things, and they even helped the Broncos, I kind of think, get over their hump a couple years later and start winning championships as well. And like you said, it's an insane goaltending battle between the Beezer and Patrick Waugh. Scoreless through 3 periods of hockey, 2 overtime periods before Uwe Krupp finally puts one in. And like I said, that original Avs team is just something that is just so legendary here in Colorado. I mean, a few years ago, I went to the Winter Classic, and the alumni game, and I was more excited about the alumni game at Coors Field with the old Avalanche players from back in that day than I was the actual game. And to be able to see those players and to be able to see them lift the first cup and the first championship for Colorado would have been great.
Yeah, it would have been a great experience and just would have been fun, and we would have been one of the few Avs fans there at the Miami arena going nuts for the Avs to win the cup, and just overall just would have been some like demons lifted. It'd be like, oh my God, this is what a championship feels like after so many times with the Broncos not winning the Super Bowl beforehand. It just would have been just an awesome experience.
It would have been really, really cool. And then on top of that, you get, like I said, kind of a unlikely hero in that game in Yui Krupp. I mean, he's a defenseman, wasn't a big goal scorer. So a guy who really ends up being the hero of that game is just amazing to see as well.
He actually had a very underrated playoffs. I did some research on his playoffs. He actually had a very, very solid playoffs going around, especially for a guy too. And he's just an unbelievable story too. I mean, this is a guy that hurt his knee the first game of the season and didn't really play until probably about like 3 or 4 games left in the regular season. And then he goes and has an amazing playoffs as well. And then obviously caps it off with scoring the Stanley Cup winning goal, which is basically every hockey player's dream, is to score the goal that wins you the Stanley Cup. So he got to experience it.
He certainly did. I mean, he was kind of a journeyman before that, going from like the Sabres to the Islanders when they weren't that good, then ending up on the Nordiques, and then moving over with the team, obviously, to Colorado. Like you said, he only played 6 games before the playoffs began that year. So for him to be able to bounce back from that injury and still make such an impact in the playoffs was really cool as well.
It was, and he will always be remembered in Avalanche lore, as that guy that won us the cup.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, you should probably put his jersey up in the rafters just because who knows if they'd have ever scored another goal on the Beezer that night. I mean, that game might have still been going with the way those two goaltenders were battling.
I bet Sanders Ojelin still has nightmares about that because he had like 2 or 3 chances that really could have won the cup with any other goalie except for John Van Beesbrook at the time. Maybe Patrick Waugh would have saved those as well, but my God, like the chances that he had, oh my God, like he really should have been the cup winner, but it didn't happen, and obviously it was Yui Krupp.
Yeah, absolutely. Sandis Ozelin. I mean, we're going to go back in the day. Obviously, you were there in elementary school with Victor Kamensky, whose dad, Valerie, was on those teams. And so I went to his birthday party. I believe it was that year or the year after, and I actually got to shoot Sandis Ozelin at laser tag. So that's my claim to fame. I shot Sandis Ozelin in a game of laser tag.
Your claim to fame. Yeah, I think I was sick that day. I think that's the reason why I couldn't go. I think I was sick because we were kind of friends with him. So. But yeah, you got to shoot Sandis Ojelin. That's always a good thing.
Sandis Ojelin. And I'll also remember this. Victor's dad, Valerie, obviously was there as well. He's part of the 96 Avs team. And he is not showing any mercy to this birthday party full of kids. Every game of laser tag, he's the top scorer at Laser Quest. He is just picking off little kids one by one. So no mercy from Valerie Kamensky that night.
Was it his Soviet Army training because he was part of the USSR team before it disbanded? Was it probably his Soviet Army training? Just like I must just break you kids, even if it is laser tag.
I don't know. I got to be honest. In the times that I've been to Laser Quest as an adult, I've done the same thing. I've gone and picked off little kids too. So it's either smart strategy to win. I think that's just what it is. I think he's just a competitor.
Yeah, he's just a great competitor, and he was great. I always loved Victor and Valerie. So
I did too, and I mean, obviously, you look back on it. Sandis Ojelin, a great player as well. He was having a little bit more fun. I remember that night at laser tag. He wasn't quite as serious and wasn't necessarily trying to win. But I think that's why I was able to get the one up on him and shoot him that night.
Thank God Claude Lemieux wasn't at the birthday party. He probably would sucker punch you in the back if he shot him.
Yeah, exactly. He'd have been that guy who pushed you up against the wall and just started firing in your back.
He Probably. Oh,
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 man.
oh. What do you got next on your list?
Oh man, good memories. Next, I'm gonna go, and this is gonna be one of the ones where the U.S. actually takes the L in this one, and that's gonna be the 2010 men's gold medal game in Canada, and it was the U.S. versus Canada gold medal game. The Olympics are being played in Vancouver, and it is just an exciting, exciting game. Back and forth, OT it goes. Sidney Crosby ends up scoring the game winner for the Canadians in that game. But just that game would have been really cool to be a part of. And once again, to be at Olympics would have been incredible. But to be at a Vancouver Olympics, that game, it felt like the U.S. kind of had some momentum going into that. And for the Canadians to be able to clinch the gold medal rather on home ice would have been really cool to be a part of.
Oh, just an amazing collection of talent, both on with the Americans and the Canadian side. I mean, you could have done this. You could have done the O2 uh, Olympic gold medal game between USA and Canada. I mean, just the talent on both of those teams. But I'm glad you went with 2010, and it was a great game to be a part of. It was a shame though, because I would have loved it if the U.S. would have beaten Canada at their game in Canadian soil as well. It would have been a great game to be a part of. And then seeing Sidney Crosby, basically, the Canadian golden child of this decade, score the game-winning goal would have been just an overall, just an amazing atmosphere to be a part of.
And I mean, obviously, to see how the Canadians would celebrate or party after that win would have been cool to be a part of. I mean, granted, if we were there in our American gear, they'd have given us a hard time. They'd have broken our balls a little bit, but at the end of the day, it would have been a fun one to be a part of, and to see the Canadians get the victory there, and get that gold medal on home soil would have been really cool. Plus, you get a phenomenal playoff performance by Ryan Miller for Team USA in the goaltending department. So, I mean, it was just an incredible gold medal game that goes into OT. Like, you can't ask for more than that.
No, you can't ask for anything more. And for for Canada to win, I know they would have bust our. We probably would have gotten into some fights too. They probably would have a little too much Labatt Blues here and there, but it would have been just a great game to be a part of, and just on the edge of your seat. And would have been awesome to see an Olympic game, and just to see just how great those two sides were.
Yeah, it would have been insane to be a part of it. I mean, like I said, you look at the teams for that game, man. You got for the Canadian side, you got all these guys. You got Taves, you got Eric Stahl, you got Niedermeyer, you got Martin Brodeur, you got Chris Pronger. You got all these insane names. And you got some good names on the U.S. side. Like I said, Ryan Miller putting it out there. You have Zach Parise. You have Bobby Ryan. You have a lot of these great players in recent years that just end up in this great game that, like I said, ends up deadlocked going into overtime. You can't ask for more than that.
No, there's nothing you can ask for more, especially for a gold medal game that it goes into overtime between two basically equally matched teams. And again, seeing the Canadian Golden Child score the goal would have been just a awesome cherry on top of a great Sunday game.
Yeah, it would have been fun. It would have been real fun as well. Like you said, partying with them, taking some Labatt Blues, and who knows, maybe getting into a brawl or two. A good-natured brawl.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you got next?
I'm gonna stick with Canada, in which Canada wins again. I'm gonna go the 1987 Canada Cup between the USSR and Canada. Now this supposedly the game two was supposedly is going to go down as one of the greatest hockey games ever played ever. And just rewatching the game, it really was a great experience to see, and just to see both of the teams on both USSR and Canada, the players on that team. I mean, good God, you have Hall of Famers. I mean, obviously with Canada's side, you have Messier, you have Gretzky, you have Mario Lemieux, you have Doug Gilmour, you have Ray Bourque, you have Larry Murphy, Paul Coffey. I mean, just amazing collection of people, and just And then on USSR side, you have obviously our boy Valery Kamensky. We have Alexei Gusarov, obviously Fetisov, and just a great collection of talent. And it would have been great too, and seeing it in Canada as well, and watching, probably Gretzky and Lemieux play in like a non-All-Star game type of game would have been just fun to be a part of.
It certainly would. That collection of talent would have been there, and like you hear how great that game was, and just be able to see that game live would have been insane.
Yeah, which just would have been fun, and seeing Gretzky and Lemieux basically coming into their primes, and oh man.
Yeah, that would have been insane. Like you said, seeing him clinch that on Canadian soil too. Like you said, the collection of talent, Gretzky and Lemieux together, like that would have been like watching, like I said, Jordan, Pippen, or just some of these two great players just playing together would have been insane to see.
Yeah, and
actually, it would have been more like if you ever had like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan on the same All-Star team. It would have been like that.
Or they're playing for like the Olympic team. That would have been what it was.
Exactly. That's awesome. That's a great game. I would have liked to have seen that one.
Yes. What game do you have?
I'm going to stick in the Olympic realm, and I'm going to go with a game that I watched on TV that was just phenomenal to see. And that was the 2018 women's gold medal game in hockey. And the U.S.'s victory in that game was just such an exciting game. And then to see the U.S. pull out that one would have been insane to see.
I had not thought about that game in a while. Now that you mentioned it, my God, that was a fun game to be a part of. And the game went into a shootout, and it's just like that shootout was I felt like more nerve-wracking than like the overtime games.
Oh, it sure was. And then the battle between the two, oh my God, it was such a great back and forth, like unreal game.
It was amazing, and it showed that, like women's hockey can be competitive, and it was a very, very competitive game, and it was just wow, just an eye-opening experience, and it was just between basically the two greatest teams in basically international women's hockey.
Yeah, and like you said, that shootout was just so exciting. I think like Andrea hadn't really even watched much hockey, but I made her sit down and watch that game with me, and it just ended up being so cool.
It was so cool, and just a great experience to be a part of, and would have loved to have been part of, and just a great game all around.
Yeah, it was just, oh man, so good.
It was a great cheering experience too. Just watching the game and seeing the USA win the game in the shootout would have been just a great experience, and just cheering and going crazy.
Yeah, and to see him beat a strong team in Canada too, I mean, that was a fun game. And so, like I said, to see that one live, to see it at an Olympics, would have been awesome.
Absolutely, it would have been just okay. It would have been just a fun hockey game to go to.
What do you got next?
So my next two are my last two I think are going to be Avs centric. So if you
I think
guys
it's
don't want
probably
to,
going to be the same two I have, but go
yeah,
on.
it's probably the same two. Yeah. So if you guys aren't very Avs centric, you can skip now. We won't get mad. Thank you for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'm going to go to 1997 with the regular season game between the Avs and Detroit, and just like that bloodbath that happens. I mean, you really look back at that fondly and like, wow, those two teams really, really hated each other, and just seeing like a bloodbath happen, and just seeing it was what I love too. Is just seeing Patrick Waugh just sprinting down. Like you never see a goalie really skate pretty fast, but he was sprinting down, and just seeing the collision he made with one of the Detroit Red Wings players, as well as Darren McCarty is clubbing Claude Lemieux from behind. It was that would have been fun to be a part of.
That one definitely would have too, and that's the one where he fights Chris Osgood, right?
No, I think that's a year later. I think he fights Vernon though. He fights Mike Vernon.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's the same game that I have on my list, but the one where he fights Osgood is just so good too. And I mean that Avs Red Wings rivalry was just so good in the late '90s, early 2000s. You could tell these teams just didn't like each other. And I mean, we just haven't seen that kind of rivalry from hockey, it feels like, since.
Yeah, and really there should be a 30 for 30 about this rivalry. Like it really was probably the quintessential rivalry of that era, folks. Like you could talk about like how those like college rivalries and all that, but that was really a rivalry. Like you hated the Red Wings, you hated the color red here in Colorado. Really, I mean, it's just you hated that bright red uniform and that logo. You just hated it at the time, and you wanted nothing but like ill will against the Red Wings.
I still do. Like I said earlier, I wouldn't go back to any game where the Red Wings won. I mean, that's because of what was ingrained on me during that time in that rivalry. And if you look back on that rivalry, like you were guaranteed a fight, if not a brawl, a bench clearing brawl, every time those two teams played. And those two teams were, I mean, you have a couple of years there where the stars were mixed in, but for a long time there, those were the top two teams in the West. They were battling it out every season. And so, like I said, that rivalry just escalated. It boiled over in that game in 97. It boiled over a year later in 98 when, you have Waugh versus Osgood in that memorable goalie fight. Like, just multiple memorable goalie fights. Like I said, it's just you haven't had this kind of rivalry since then, and I would love to see something like it.
Absolutely, and it also I got kind of mad at the Red Wings for a little bit because they never really brawled in Colorado. They always waited till they stayed at their home in the Joe Louis Arena. You know, they never really wanted to brawl here in Colorado and stuff. They always waited until they were at their precious Joe Louis Arena to really start the brawl and fight and stuff. You know, it always seemed like they were good citizens here in Colorado, but in Detroit, it always seemed like they turned into goons.
Exactly. And I mean, like I said, it would have been cool to see him do a good one. I think it was even back then, it was McNichols Arena before the Pepsi Center even opened. I guess now the Ball Center or whatever they're calling it.
The Ball Arena.
Ball Arena. The Ball.
Yeah, the good old Big Mac.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, once again, it's like you said, it seemed like all the brawls happened there in Detroit. But like I said, that rivalry was just something special. And just, again, you get some great players on both sides. I mean, obviously you get Sakic and Forsberg on the Avs side. You got Yzerman and Shanahan on the Red Wings side. And just to see those teams colliding would have been insane.
Yeah, and it's just great players and just great brawls, and just to see probably a lot of blood on the ice, because there really was a ton of blood when you really go back and look at it. I mean, the fitting image is the referee trying to scrape off of some of this blood, a lot of this, basically this puddle of blood.
Honestly, when I went to the alumni game a few years ago that was held at Coors Field, it was like the Avalanche from the old days versus the Red Wings from the old days. I was surprised that they didn't at least even just have like one sort of joking fight just for old time's sake. That Claude Lemieux didn't throw down against somebody. I forget if it was McCarty or Draper that was on the team. Like, I was shocked he didn't just, even if it was for ceremony, throw down against McCarty in that.
It would have been fun, yeah. Just a little ceremony, drop into the gloves, a little scuffle. You know, everybody kind of gets in a scuffle. I think it would have excited the fans a little bit.
Exactly.
But I mean, they're older and stuff. I think they're really caring about their health now than they did back then.
Yeah, you don't want to risk all that dental work you put in after your playing days ended.
Exactly. All right. This is your last one, right? Like we kind of.
Yeah, I think we can skip. I think your last one's next, right? And
I believe so.
I think we both know it's probably the same one. It's right behind your left shoulder.
Does it have to do with this one?
Yeah, that one right there. I think we both know what was coming. I mean, you had to talk about it. The 2001 Stanley Cup Finals, Game 7, Avalanche Devils. You have the best team in the East and the Devils that were just saying it's an insane collection of talent. You have the best team in the West and the Avalanche that year. Once again, huge, insane collection of talent. Ray Bourque, Rob Blake at the defensive line with Adam Foote. You have Waugh versus Brodeur in net, and you just have this iconic moment at the end of that when the Avalanche clinched the Stanley Cup. Joe Sakic immediately handing it to Ray Bourque, who had waited 22 years to lift that cup.
Yeah, it would have been just an amazing experience to be a part of. My mom still gets mad at me for this game because she said it could have been this or your college education and stuff. So she could have had a chance to go, but she chose college education. So thanks, Mom, for choosing my college education. But again, would have been just an awesome experience, and just seeing the Avs win the cup at their home, and seeing Ray Bork after basically 20, 22, 23 years of not winning it, and having a couple of chances, but not really having the chance, and then just him just winning the cup, and then obviously Sakic just. I swear to God, I think nobody else, he didn't want to take that picture with Bettman at all. Like, he was just like, come on, like, get this done with, so I could give the cup to Bork.
Such a classy maneuver there by Sakic in that game. I think that was such a class act. I mean, it's not just us. I mean, obviously we have our Colorado bias about this moment and it being such a fantastic moment in sports. But I mean, I've seen other entities. I've seen like Hockey Writers website or something where this was ranked as one of the number one moments in Stanley Cup Finals history. It's a top 5 moment on Bleacher Report. It's not just an Avalanche moment. It's a moment where you see a guy who's worked so hard to get that cup finally get rewarded and get it right, to see the captain make that move too, of just realizing, okay, this is the guy who's worked the hardest for it. I lifted it 5 years ago. It's his time. That was such an enduring moment.
I got a question. So if the Avs had not won in 96 and they won it here in like 01 with Ray Bork and all that, do you think Sakic raises the cup first? Or no, knowing Superjoe's personality, I don't think so. I think he gives it to Ray. But the fact that I don't know. There probably would have been a little bit of a controversy if he didn't, if they had not won it before, maybe he probably would have lifted it and then immediately given it to Ray, that type of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, no one would have faulted him if he took the first skate and then gave it to Ray. But the fact that immediately he takes it and immediately just hands it over to Bork was just such a cool moment. I still think, I mean, looking back on it, I think Debbie should have, instead of paying for your college education, gotten the tickets to the game.
Oh, man, who knows,
Trust me, I'd rather my mom spent my college education on the game.
Oh, geez. Oh, she's not going to hear that down. I'm not going to lie. Oh, but it would have been just a great experience. And seeing one of my underrated Avs players, Alex Tanguay, score 2 goals in that game would have been really cool to see as well. It's just a young Tanguay, and you have young Chris Drury too on that team. Man, just an unbelievable collection of talent.
And on top of it, you had, Rob Blake. I mean, you have so many players, Hayduk and Drury, and just such a deep team there that Colorado Avalanche team had. And even on the other side, to get to see Martin Brodeur, to get to see Scott Niedermayer, Scott Stevens, that 01 Devils team was loaded. That's why, they were such a formidable opponent too. And that's why it ended up being such a great game.
And they had won the cup just the previous year too. They were looking to try to go back-to-back titles and all that. And it was crazy. And it isn't a little weird. It's a battle between probably the 2 greatest goaltenders of all time. And we didn't see one overtime game. It's pretty crazy, isn't it? Like we didn't see one overtime game between those two players. And it's just, it really kind of a shame. I wish we had an overtime. But all in all, we ended up getting a game 7 and a decent, really good game 7 as well. So
such a good game 7, such a good contest. And like I said, the people, the talent that you get to see in this game, such a good game to be a part of. And then, like I said, you get one of those, it's definitely got to be considered, I would think, the most iconic Stanley Cup raising, I would think, of all time.
Yeah, it's right up there. I mean, if it's not number 1, it's definitely number 2. It's probably one of the most iconic in NHL history.
I would say so. And it's such a great thing and such a great moment and a great way to end our countdown of the games we would go to with our time machine.
Ooh, man, great game. Great games.
Yeah, man.
Great games. Yes, and be ready, folks, for next week where we're going to be doing college football games that we would love to attend. We're big college football guys, so we're very excited about that. So we got to do our research now for college football games we'd love to attend.
Absolutely. I can't wait for that. Obviously, there's so many college football games that I would love to have attended. So this list may, who knows, this may be another situation where you might have to have an episode 6.5 just to get through all the college games you'd like to attend.
Oh, definitely. It could be. Yeah, we're gonna split off the football. So we're gonna have college football next week, and then pro football the following week. So we're gonna split up that because of the way the basketball ran, kind of the way the basketball kind of ran a little bit long. That we had to do a episode 4.5. So be sure to give that a listen as well. And it was fun to do. It's fun to do that list.
It's fun to do all these lists, and if there was another game that you wish you could have been at, but if you had a time machine, if you could go back and see any hockey game, be sure to drop it in the comments here on YouTube, and be sure to listen to us. Go back if you haven't listened to any of our other episodes. Listen to them all. It's a lot of fun, and be sure to keep track of us as we go forward with college football episodes next week.
Yes, and again, thank you again to Zach DeMose for giving us the title intro.
Absolutely. Thank you, Zach. And thank you all for watching. We hope you'll join us again next week. This has been episode 5 of the SP and Bushy Show.
See ya.